So, I thought we would do a mini mukbang, whatever you want to call it. Chat. So, a few videos ago I talked about feeling lonely, my mental health, and really not talking to my grandparents about it. So to answer the question that has appeared in DMs, comments, Instagram, yes, I am close with my parents in a sense, but we definitely don't have the normal grandparent-grandchild relationship. My grandparents are split. They've been split my whole life. They split when my dad was little. That is norm. My granddad has a wife, and like, she's okay. We get on well enough. They just weren't around, and I don't know if that's because me and my dad are slightly, and by slightly, well, everyone in this family is very independent, very headstrong, but me and dad more so. And I think sometimes we both feel like we stick out like sore thumbs, or even like the black sheeps of the family. And so my grandparents haven't really been around. I'd see them a handful of times in the year as a child, and even now I think I see them both 3 times a year. Which is fine, and I do know that that is some people's norm, but where I grew up, grandparents were seen like every weekend, every other weekend, were coming to school events or dance events and things like that, and I just had my mom and dad, and I stuck out a little bit. And because I think my dad isn't always the most comfortable having conversations with my grandparents, I've just copied in that. Not get me wrong, they're not perfect, but nobody is. Yeah, my dad isn't perfect, I'm not perfect. And so I'm not going to sit here and say they've been the worst grandparents in the world or the best grandparents in the world. I've been very lucky, and my granddad's taken me to America twice, and I've spent lots of time with my grandmother. I've gone and stayed with her for weekends, and she's taking me to the theatre and things like that. I still have books from when she took me to like Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella and things like that. And like we had great experiences together, but neither of my grandparents are the people I would ring in a crisis of any kind. I wouldn't ring them up just to say, hi, how are you? Because I don't have that relationship with them. I don't have the pop round and see them, and so when things get hard here, we don't fill them in. Really, ever. And when we see them, 9 times out of 10, just because of how they reach out and how we kind of we put them into our schedule, we tend to see them during the good times. Now, my comment on them living further away, I have no problem with that. I mean, I'd like my granddad to live a little closer. He lives 3 and a bit hours. So yeah, my whole life I would have liked him to live closer. My grandparents, out of the 2 of my grandparents, my grandmother was the one that came to things, but we did stop inviting her for lots of reasons. And one of those reasons was that neither me or my dad entirely felt fair inviting one grandparent over the other. And I think I've seen my grandparents communicate / be in the same room a handful of times. That doesn't mean they don't. Like, I generally don't know. But I haven't, and I know it was, I think one of the a few times my dad said he'd saw them together was around the time I was born. It was slightly odd for him. So Dad because we don't entirely, our family dynamic is very weird. No one, neither my parents or myself, entirely felt comfortable having them both in the same room because we didn't know, like, that just isn't the normal. It's one or the other. And Granddad used to give excuses as why he couldn't come to things, and so honestly, I just stopped inviting everybody because the two people who consistently turn up in my life are my mom and dad. Moving on to my uncle. I have two of them. One of them is younger than me. He's really sweet. He's very attentive. Every time I see him, he asks a million and one questions. He takes his uncle duty very seriously in that sense. And we do text here and there. But my other uncle, who's 18 months younger than my dad, we have no relationship. I love him greatly, but I generally don't think he could tell you my birthday, my eye colour, my height, my favourite colour, what GCSEs I did, what I did at college, whether I danced, any of that. We just don't have that relationship. Weirdly enough, when he was over in Australia, that was when we talked the most, through email. Which is a little weird. Granddad's wife, I've known her my whole life. We just don't have a great relationship. She tends to comment on my hair colour, my height, my weight, how much I eat, how much I don't eat, how much I'm drinking, how much I'm not drinking, what I'm drinking, what I'm not drinking. That it's not fair I'm a carer, but when we have these conversations of, well, there's no one else to help my dad when he's having a bad day, is there? She kind of gets this deer in the headlight situation. She's roughly 10 years older than my dad, which I don't think fully helps the dynamic either, because there was a period of time where her and dad had tension because it was sort of a talking subject that I think she used to try and elevate herself, and naturally all it did was annoy everybody. She tends to do that less now, but she likes to make it clear that we're not family, and I think that's, again, a reason I don't really communicate with her. What I said about my mother is true. I've said it to my mother's face. I find it hard to talk to her because when we get into heated emotional conversation, yes, you know, I'm saying, look, when you do this and this really bugs me, could we improve it? Like, those things, 100% I'm saying, look, these are the issues, let's fix it together. And some of that is me, you know, and I admit to my failings. Not, you know, I'm not perfect and I don't always do it straight away, but when I know that they're right, I do admit to them to the best of my, you know, acknowledgement of what I think is the issue, and I do try and work on those things. Some of them may be my mental health things, and so it's harder for me to admit to them or fix them, but I do try. But me and my dad are very similar, but some of that comes down to my own mother's childhood, you know, some of those issues. So what I'm actually trying to say is my family is not perfect, but I might have unintentionally implied that my grandparents and my parents, my relationship with anyone outside of my parents, my mom and my dad and my little brother, who's only 10, bless him, is not the greatest and isn't a good relationship, and that's not the truth. And I do have good relationships with my grandparents and all my family, and to some degree, well, my dad's side of the family, and they do bring value to my life when I see them. It's just, I don't see them consistently enough to be necessarily fully comfortable with them. Which is a little sad. honestly. But saying that, I think my grandparents would be unable to cope with me as a kid if they saw like the full version of me. To be honest, I think the same now though. I think if they saw the full version of me with my full sarcasm and like just some of my deadpanness, I don't think they could cope either. As for the lonely aspect, I am trying to get back out into the dating world. Because I am ready for that. But yeah, it is lonely. It is lonely having no family, live less than an hour away. Because it's not like I can take a break. You know, if in the afternoon I need a break, and I want to pop around for like a cup of tea or something, I can't do that because they live over an hour and 3 hours away. Which is 100% right. It just means that really if I'm struggling with both parents, I'm stuck without going to a coffee shop or something, which, let's be honest, in the crisis we're all living in right now, is not always the easiest thing to do some weeks. I'm stuck in the house with them. And that can make a cruddy situation worse. Also in that clip, honestly, I was not in the best mental state, and I probably shouldn't have included it. But I wanted to be real and relatable and honest with you guys. Because I think I'm not the only one that sometimes looks at the dynamic of their family, particularly if you are the main family carer, and think, this sucks, this is not my job. Because it's not, you know, being a child carer to a parent, it's not your job. It's not your job to finish somebody else's job. Of course it's not. But at the same time, I do understand that, you know, they're grown-ass adults and you have to let them do their own thing. But some of Dad's issues come from his accident and things, and that he probably will never go into therapy and handle. So it's just a circle that we're all living in. It's a cycle and we're all living in it, and particularly if you are the child carer to a parent. Now, I'm really lucky that my dad in particular is more capable of, particularly even on his bad days, but like his good and his meh days, he's more than capable of sort of giving the care and the attention and support on his bad days. If they're mild bad days, he's able to do that. On bad days, or like really bad days, I'd be lucky to get him out of bed. And those are the days that I sometimes think it would be nice if one of my grandparents lived, 25, 30 minutes away. Because at least then I could ring and be like, I'm needed in like 3 different spots. Is there any way you could come help me try and get Dad out of bed today? Even if it's just to sit downstairs and have a chat and a cup of tea or a coffee or whatever, because he can't, if he stays in bed all day, it's gonna, this bad mood and sort of mental space he's in is gonna last for days longer. Oh, I'm in a good place now. I haven't actually spoken to any of my family, but I know my grandmother watches these, so she might be avoiding me after that. Which, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to come off that way. I know that when they are included, they are very supportive. So that is something I could probably work on, is that of including them more in something. Grandad was very nosy when I was editing and taking pictures, and you know, sat with me and Dad as we worked out like what the best laptop would be to upgrade, because the one I had just wasn't working. He couldn't take the editing, it was too hard for the processor, so actually Dad now has that laptop. I do know when included, very much so, my grandparents in particular are very supportive and very hands-on in that sense. My granddad particularly with tech, because he's not the best, he's not the techiest of people, but he does enjoy it, whereas my grandma will tell you she's a bit of a tech phobe, so. Mentally I'm doing a lot better. I am going to speak to my GP again, possibly go on some anti-anxiety / depression tablets for a couple of months, and even consider some therapy again. Been ever since Legoland, which is, I believe, the previous video. I've actually been on a pretty good high, mood, so hopefully it stays that way. I haven't talked about my mental health too much on this channel, but I do have a mental health playlist that I'll leave linked in the iCard and down below if you're interested in checking that out. I do have carer autism information also, which I'll have linked down below. If you want to check out my social medias, they'll be here on the screen. Don't forget to hit the subscribe and like button, and that is all I really have for this video. So I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed this slightly more raw and honest sit down conversation, and I'll see you all next time. Bye guys.